fit in the boxes. Stop it, stop it. Quitting was never an option. Exhausted, exhausted. This passion is never exhausted. And you cannot stop it. Nah, you cannot stop it. Quitting was never an option. And you cannot stop it. Nah, you cannot stop it.
Now, what is the Sumerian kings list? It's an incredible list of kings that ruled on planet Earth long ago. We're talking about very long ago. That time period or that time frame got put into dogma, into religious systems, and then they now say the planet's only that old. It's a farce and it's a joke, because we know we found things on this planet hundreds of thousands, tens of hundreds of thousands, and even millions of years old. But the Sumerian kings list is incredible because it records the names of these kings. It records how long each king ruled, and it records the city that they ruled from. Okay? It records the city that they actually ruled from. Think about that. So we're talking about a high level of information. We're talking about a real account. And then when we go back, we meaning archaeologists, to the names of these places in Mesopotamia, which is now modern day Middle East, Iraq, Iran, Tehran, and all these places, guess what we discover? We discover remnants of those ancient cities. They actually existed. We can see the remnant structures in the ground, buried by sand. Some sticking up above the sand, some underneath the sand, discovered through ground penetrating radar and LiDAR and everything else. So we know that these structures in these cities did exist, and the evidence, the physical evidence of them is still here today. I'm talking about everything through Assyria, Akkadian, Babylonian, Persian, all of that, Turkey. But I want to talk about the Sumerian kings list because this is the most accurate list of kings in procession that exist with these extensive lifespans. The Egyptian kings list actually only picked up around the 3rd dynasty because a lot of the information had kind of been lost. We kind of got the names here and there. We kind of got the dates through estimates of star alignments and some other accounts. With the Sumerian kings list, right down the line, okay? Right down the line. And what's incredible about this is you discover that they even let some women rule at some point. So some women even had kingship over the planet. It's not ruling over a specific region of the earth, but over planet Earth itself. But let me show you a picture. Now, where can you find this Sumerian kings list, these mythical tablets? Well, there's only one, and that actually is located, the original is located at the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, England. So I took a trip there myself, and this is the photo, the Sumerian kings list translation. In the following translation, we're going to be going over the Sumerian kings list located in the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, England. And it begins here. After the kingship descended from heaven, they're talking about kingship used to be in heaven. Now, in these ancient references where you see heaven, they're not talking about heaven where the pearly white gates are. They're talking about heaven as meaning above the earth. And everywhere you see the word heaven, they're talking about these kingdoms that exist outside of Earth's atmosphere. After kingship had descended from heaven, meaning that kingship was being ruled from space, not from the planet itself. And we know that the Sumerian god Anu, A-N-U, who was the head god at one point, he didn't like coming down to the planet's surface. He preferred to rule from the sky. After the kingship descended from heaven, kingship was in Uruk. And Uruk Alulim became king. He ruled for 28,800 years. Think about that. They record these years in shars. A shar is 3,600 years. His total amount of years combined, according to these people, was 28,800. One man. That's just the time he ruled. How about how long did he actually live? They had access to monoatomic gold, colloidal silver, the elixir of life that they always talk about in these tablets. They knew how to transfer their mind from one body to the next. They knew how to create clones of their own body in something called the halls of Amenti in rejuvenation chambers and transfer from body to body, living amongst men but unlike men, giving the impression to the people that they were eternal, that they were immortal. Then what happens? Alajar ruled for 36,000 years. The two kings, they ruled for 64,800 years. Then Eridug fell, and the kingship was taken to Bat-Tabiera. In Bat-Tabiera, Enmen-Luana ruled for 43,200 years. One person, 43,200. They didn't have the telomeres capped. Their telomeres aren't capped. We know that there was a genetic mutation to mankind around 200,000 years ago where chromosome number 2 was taken out, fused together, and 2 telomere caps were put on this chromosome, one on each side. And the telomere was capped, meaning once it runs out of genetic buffer material, you begin the death process. Well, we know for a fact that prior to that, there's recordings of humans, Homo sapiens like us, living for way more than 60, 70, 80 years. But with the cap, the maximum lifespan is 120 years. And what did they find out at Harvard University? The maximum lifespan of a human being under the most pristine conditions and health is about 120 years. Even Star Trek copied that same thing because they've got the right conditions there in that particular century. So the maximum lifespan of a human being in the Star Trek series is 120 years. We know that he ruled for 43,200 years. Enmen-Galana ruled for 28,800 years. Dumuzid, the shepherd, ruled for 36,000 years. In one city they ruled this long. 3 kings, they ruled for 108,000 years. Then Bat-Tabiera fell, which means it was the end of that reign. Somebody else had to take over in some other place. And the kingship was taken to Zimbir. In Zimbir, Enmen-Durana became king. He ruled for 21,000 years. One king, he ruled for 21,000 years. Then Zimbir fell, and the kingship was taken to Surapag. In Surapag, Ubar-Tutu became king, and he ruled for 18,600 years. One king. In 5 cities, 8 kings ruled for 241,200 years. Then the flood swept over the land. They didn't want you to know that people came here that looked like us, but that really weren't quite us. That not only did they come here, but they developed a breakaway civilization on Earth and they ruled here. But here you have a physical, actual piece of evidence. And then we can track back and we know these cities were real. And they're trying to say the Earth is 5,000 to 6,000 years old. Are you kidding me? Now, the flood swept over the land. So what happened was, after the flood swept over the land, they said, we got to change this up now. Now, first of all, when this flood came, this was a situation that was even talked about in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, where there was a global flood. As a matter of fact, in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, which I talk about in my book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, you can get it on Amazon or forbiddenknowledge.com. Thoth, in the opening scene, is talking to his father about the flood is finally beginning to subside. and that the rush of fountains have slowed down, and that ancient temples are coming up out of the mud. And his dad tells him to get a crew together and go to the land of Chem and rebuild civilization. So we know that this flood is real, and we have a flood account in every single civilization on every continent, every ancient culture on the planet. I believe there were potentially more than just one flood. Some were regional, some were global. We're talking about a massive flood. And in the Sumerian tablets, according to the tablets, the reason for the flood could have been stopped. But Enlil was so disgusted with human beings, if you read the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Epic of Atrahasis, he was so disgusted he wanted to wipe out the creation and begin anew, start over. He was like, let's wipe him out and start fresh. And his relatives, Enki and Hersag and everyone else, they were pissed. They were like wailing to please don't do this. But he was the king at the time, so he had the right to allow this to happen. And he did. And so what Enki did was he contacted some of his people on Earth and said, look, there's a situation about to go down, and I need you guys to be prepared for this. So I'm going to give you these floor plans, and I need you to build this structure. I can't do it for you because it's going to look really suspect if I do it. But I'm going to give you these instructions and allow you to go ahead, and if you listen to me, you'll escape this calamity. So he went to Ziusudra, aka Noah in the Bible, but his name is Ziusudra, and he gave him the plans how to build an ark. It wasn't the shape of the one described in the Bible. It is actually the shape of a disc. And this tablet has been discovered. It was discovered about 4.5 years ago, and it's now public knowledge. Just look for the Ark of Ziusudra stone tablet discovered. It was cut up into sections like a pie on the inside, and his instructions were to gather up his local flock and any local animals and flora that was in the area and take on the ark with him, some meals and so forth and some water and everything else, right? Not to get 2 of every kind from around the planet. 2 cockroaches and 2 fleas and 2 lizards and 2 false information, fake news. Didn't happen. And we have the physical tablet. We have the physical evidence of the tablet, which gave the instructions on what to build. It was a disc, almost looking like a UFO shape, not a big giant boat that they've been teaching y'all for generations and generations. Fake news. It's fake news. They taught you a bunch of lies. So after the flood had swept over and the kingship had descended from heaven, the kingship was in Kik. In Kik, Jakur became king. He ruled for 1,200 years. Kulusiana Bel ruled for 960 years. Then it says, Nanjik Likima ruled for 670 years. And Taraana ruled for 420 years and 3 months and 3.5 days. Why give such an exact time period when you have to now etch all of this into stone? Do you see there's no logic behind that? The reason why this was done or why this was recorded is because it happened. And Taraana ruled for 420 years, 3 months and 3.5 days. And that was a woman. So there's a record here of a woman ruling for 420 years in these tablets. Babum ruled for 300 years. Zukakip ruled for 900. And then you have Atab, who ruled for 600 years. Makta, the son of Atab, ruled for 840 years. Aruim, the son of Makata, ruled for 720 years. Etana the shepherd, who ascended to heaven and consolidated all the foreign countries, became king, and he ruled for 1,500 years. He consolidated all not some, not a few. He consolidated all of the foreign countries. He made one giant kingdom and became king and ruled for 1,500 years. We know that it's real. We know that these cities are real. Why isn't this being taught anywhere? Because it breaks down dogma. It breaks down falsehoods. It breaks down fake news. That's why. It destroys it. This one tablet will destroy any religion. This one tablet destroys any religion. Look at this. Bali, the son of Etana, ruled for 400 years. These people understood the longevity of life. Enmenuna ruled for 660 years. Melemkik, the son of Enmenuna, ruled for 900 years. 1,560 are the years of the dynasty of Enmenuna. Cedar, the son of Zamug, ruled for 305 years. Iku ruled for 900 years. Itasadum ruled for 1,200 years. Enmegbarajesi, who made the land of Elam submit, became king, and he ruled for 900 years. Aga, the son of Enmenbaresi, ruled for 625 years. 1,525 are the years of the dynasty of Enmegbarasi. 23 kings, they ruled for 24,510 years, 3 months, and 3.5 days. Then Kik was defeated, and the kingship was taken to Eanna. Do you see the detail in this? Do you see how intricate this is? How much effort had been put into this information? So, this text is really incredible because it's so ancient. And this version of the Sumerian tablets, of this King's List, the Sumerian King's List in this tablet, is copied from even an older tablet. And that previous one was copied from even an older tablet. And that one was copied from even an older tablet. So we're looking at a copy of text that goes back, who knows how many hundreds of thousands of years. You're looking at some of the oldest account in the world of people who came from another place, not from Earth, and created a breakaway civilization, and then began to rule over this planet. It comes down to a point where they begin to give kingship over to humans. It comes to a point post-diluvial, after the flood, where they say, okay, there's a lot of people on this planet now. And now we're going to begin to have a liaison between us and the human race. So we're going to have a person, and that go-between is a person that's going to be half human and half Anunnaki. In this case, these Anunnaki beings created an Atlantean civilization. So it'll be a demigod, half human, half Anunnaki. And so the original pharaohs were kings. They were the liaisons between these gods who wanted to see their will imposed on the land and the masses. Where the kingship years are really dropping. And by the time it gets to the end, they begin to live shorter lifespans. So now, this is me. I'm standing inside of the temple of Seti in a hallway that leads towards the temple of Osiris, or the Osirian. And in this incredible super ancient hallway. On one side is the original Egyptian kings list that's used to make all text based off of Egyptian kings list pretty much in the world. If you're looking at the screen, it would be to your right. If you're facing away from the screen, it would be to the left. On the left side are giant representations of the Nitiru, the ancient gods that came to Earth during the time of Zep Tepi and turned mud into a kingdom. That's what they said there, not me. They said the Nitiru came from outside of this earth and they came down to the ground, and after the flood, they turned mud into a kingdom. The Emerald Tablets says the same thing. When they saw the temples, when Thoth saw the temples rising up out of the mud, they decided to go to the land of Kem and rebuild civilization. Same thing, same story, different tablets, different time periods, same story. The Dogon tribe right now are in Mali, Africa. Now, what's interesting about the Dogon tribe is they literally were the original inhabitants of pre-dynastic Egypt, or AKA the land of Kemet, okay? They were the people that were inhabiting the land of Kemet, and they were the people that had, and still do, have significant knowledge that has baffled scientists for 44 or 5 decades now since they've learned about them. And so the Dogon tribe, we can date back to at least 7,200 to 7,300 years that they were already in Kemet before it was called. Long before it was called. Egypt is a fairly new name. It's a Greek name. The land of Kemet, okay? And so you had Kemet, and later on, Kemet got broken up to Egypt and Nubia, which are still really the same damn place. But the Dogons had a significant knowledge of the universe. And scientists were baffled because some of the knowledge that the Dogon tribe had, modern science hadn't even acquired yet. They knew about a trinary star system located in Sirius. 3 stars orbiting each other. They knew that one of the stars, Sirius B, had literally lived its full lifespan and ran out of fuel. Some stars, when they run out of fuel, they'll actually explode, okay, and turn into a supernova. It depends on how much mass the star has. Some stars aren't big enough to go supernova, like our star, the star we have that we orbit. This is why creating a breakaway civilization and leaving your star to go somewhere else and create a breakaway civilization is the norm for any advanced race of people, which is exactly what happened here. And we have the evidence in writing carved and etched into stone all over this planet, etched into stone, saying that's exactly what happened. The Dogon tribe, what did they say? Do you want to have pride in your ancestors? You want to feel good about your ancestors? Well, don't spit in their face then when they tell you that the Nomo came from another star named Sirius B and brought them advanced knowledge of the universe. They came from space to this planet and sat with these people and taught them about star systems, planetary alignments. They taught them about every single planet in our solar system, the shape, the size, the color, the orbital periods, the equatorial periods, everything going on within our solar system and beyond. They had this advanced knowledge and still have it till this very day. They have this special ritual called the Ziggy, where they put these masks on and they do these alignment rituals only when specific stars and planets are aligned in space. And they do this with no telescope. And they know about these orbital periods of trinary star systems with no telescope. By the way, Sirius B can't even be seen by the naked eye. on a great night. Because it's a failed star, it ran out of fuel, it became a white dwarf. Just like our sun is going to become a white dwarf, which is the point I was trying to make. Our sun's going to expand and it's going to shrink to a white dwarf. They even knew how much mass was in the white dwarf. You see, just because the sun shrinks down, it doesn't lose its mass. What happens is the mass is compressed and condensed so that one spoonful, if you were able to take a spoon and take a spoonful of the mass of a white dwarf, every human being on the planet together couldn't lift it. The Dogon tribe know this. They've made that exact statement. So they understand astrophysics on a level that we had to discover much, much, much later than them. Right? They knew this 7,000 years ago. What's interesting is when they got to Kemet, it was on the rebuilding phase, meaning prior to the Dogon tribe, prior to the Great Flood, there was an advanced civilization there as well. Matter of fact, that entire region, forget that, the entire planet was an advanced civilization. Far more advanced than we have right now. We're not even close to tapping into what they had. We haven't even scratched the surface of what they had, what they were capable of doing. Even with the suppressed technologies, even those aren't scratching the surface of the total power and capabilities of these ancient cultures. The Dogon tribe never had a military, police, or a jail system because they had zero crime. They would have disagreements, and then an elder would negotiate the terms of an agreement between the two sides, and that was the end of it. We don't know nothing. We're still launching chemical propelled rockets into space. We know nothing. So don't spit in your ancestors' faces by thinking you know more than them, because you don't, and neither do I. And so we know that, unfortunately, because of how peaceful they were, another race came in from the area and was like, you know what, man, these people are just relaxing in this golden age. They just chilling. They ain't got no worries in the world. They focusing on arts and crafts and knowledge and philosophy. We'll just take them over. So they got pushed out and went out into Mali, Africa, where they are right now, in Mali. Egypt, or Kemet, whatever you want to call it, has been overthrown 7 times. Another thing that's, before I continue to go into this Egyptian kings list, another thing that people get inaccurate or wrong is thinking that Egypt was all one race for the whole time. That's a falsehood. That's fake news. Egypt was overthrown 7 times by 7 different groups of people, multiple races. This is why when you go to the Cairo Museum, which I'll take you there if you come with me, when you go to the Egyptian Museum of Civilization, which I'll take you there if you come with me, you'll see bodies in there. You'll see the mummies in there. You'll see black mummies with dreadlocks and elongated skulls, by the way. You'll see black mummies with blonde hair. You'll see fair-skinned mummies with red hair. You'll see mummies that resemble people of Persian, Greek. You'll see even some that look Asian. So why is this? Egypt was a multicultural location in Africa. Even the last ruler was Alexander the Great. He became a pharaoh there. We know he wasn't black. We gotta tell the facts. But then you go down a little further, you see, go up another couple dynastic eras, and you're gonna find out the people look different. It's just a fact. It's a fact of life. We gotta stop running from it. We gotta start promoting the fake news. Yes, there were black people in Egypt. Over time, it changed up from race to race to race. It just is what it is. As Egypt was, like I said, overthrown 7 times in history. And the reasons why the noses are broken off and the ears are off is not because people didn't want people to know that black people were in Egypt. That's another big lie that's been out there for a very long time, going viral and floating around nonstop. When you come to Egypt with me, you learn the truth. That the statues and carvings there that date back 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, some even further back than that, years, thousands of years, before anybody of any other culture or skin tone came there, they're already off. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Then there's 2 reasons. The first reason is the most delicate part of these statues is the nose and the ears. They're the first to erode. They're the first to break when it falls. They're the first to go when they take them down and bury them or whatever happens. That's the reason number 1. The second reason is the Coptic Christians. Christianity existed long before Jesus was even born. The Coptics said, you know what? They kind of followed under Akhenaten's monotheistic ideas and began this whole new Coptic Christian thing. Akhenaten, reason why he was kicked out of Egypt was because he started saying there's only one God and we're gonna follow God. So he was worshiping Amun-Ra, but the people were like, okay, well, that's the only one then. So then it turned into the God of heaven, and it turned into the Father God and the Lord. And the Coptics took that and ran with it over time. And then it was like, we have to deface all the other gods, because Akhenaten said there'll be no other God but him. So let's begin to erase this. And so the people of Egypt, they were getting pissed off at Akhenaten because he was having people go around chipping away the faces. He was. That's King Tut's dad. King Tut's dad, who was a black pharaoh, ordered this. Then the Coptics carried on. Everywhere where they would hide out from the Romans, they would hide in these ancient temples and places, and they would just, while they were in there, they just start chipping away because it was an insult to them. It was demonic. So they start chipping away all the faces of all these Egyptian gods. And then the Natiru, or AKA the Anunnaki, they would start chipping away all the faces. Anytime they came across a statue, chip it away. It was the ultimate, it was considered the ultimate insult. And that's how all these faces and noses got chipped away. We kind of get broken up with the first dynastic, the Dogon were pre-dynastic. Then we go into the dynastic era, and it's kind of lost. There's not a lot of information about the first dynasty, the second dynasty of Egypt. The first 2 dynasties are kind of it's really tough to put it together. And what we do know, though, is here's something interesting. Human sacrifice was practiced at the funerary rituals that were associated with the pharaohs. So why in the world would you be an advanced civilization that has high technology, that knows how to build pyramids and use them for multiple purposes, basically creating stone functioning machines, obelisks that are made of magnetized crystal granite that can send information back and forth, that can communicate, electricity for gold plating and other things, other uses, because we have the gold plated items. So we know they use electric gold plating. So that means they had electricity thousands of years ago. We know they had light bulbs and all of this. And so now with all this high knowledge and all this, you begin to do now human sacrifices. Something's wrong here with this picture. The sacrifices were done. Well, that tells me something about these people. They weren't that intelligent. you begin to discover that a lot of these sites that I take you to in Egypt are super ancient. I'm talking about far older than you can even imagine. We're talking about tens of thousands, in some cases, tens of thousands of years old. And you begin to discover that by the time the first dynasty begins, they inherited what was already there. They built nothing. These people in the first dynasty and second dynasty built nothing. And whatever they did build fell apart, mud brick stuff. It's a joke. They inherited these megaliths. They were there already when they arrived. Just like the Mayans built nothing. And the Mexican archaeologists will tell you this, that the Mayans built nothing, because they know. The Mayans inherited what was already there. They have records that the Mayans arrived in Teotihuacan, in Chichen Itza, and Coba, and all these other places. And the stuff was there already. They just moved in. And then they started doing what? Sacrifices. They would throw virgins into wells because they thought it would make it rain, and they would play on the ball court and rip your heart out if you won. Same thing going on over here in Egypt. Foolishness. Dogma and foolishness. Why? Because these weren't the people that built the structures. These weren't the people with the high knowledge at that time period. In some weird way, the knowledge was lost for a while. You had Namur and Horhaha, Jur and Jet and Mereneth and Den and Anajib and Semikaket, Ka, Sinferka. These are some of the kings that they're presuming ruled. And let's look at their kingship time that they may have ruled during this era. 54 years, 10 years. This one they don't know. 42 years, 10 years, 8.5 years, 34 years. You see the difference? We don't really pick up an accurate account until we get to the kings list that I showed you that I was standing in front of at Abydos. And we pick up around the third dynasty. So we're going into the third dynasty. So you can see the old kingdom picks up around 2649 to 2150 BC. Okay? That's BC. If you don't know, that means before Christ. Now they're starting to use BCE, which means before current era. So if you want to go before Christ, add another 2000 onto this number to get a real time period. Okay? So you're talking about 4,649 years ago, roughly. All right? And you can see we got the names of some of these kings from the Old Kingdom in the third dynasty. Zenaket, Zojer, Simachet, Kaba, Huni, Snefru, Khufu, Jedvere, Khafre, Nebuchadnezzar II, going into the fourth dynasty now, Menacure, and even these, these people here in the fourth dynasty. In my opinion, they inherited some of the pyramids that were already here and put their name on them. So they put their name on some of the pyramids. That's my personal opinion. After looking and being inside of them, like in the third dynasty, the Djoser, okay? That's the Bent Pyramid. That pyramid is a gigantic diagnostics tool, and it's so sophisticated. I've climbed on the inside of that pyramid from the bottom all the way to the top on the inside and took people with me. So you can see fourth dynasty, fifth dynasty, sixth dynasty. Then you get to the first intermediate period, okay? You got dynasty 8 through 10. Then the first half of dynasty 11. Then you get to the middle kingdom. And then it goes second half of dynasty 11. You can see all these kings here ruling. Dynasty 12, 13, 14 through 16, 17. Then you get to the new kingdom era. And now you're getting into the time of Amenhotep III, who ruled around 1390 BC to 1352 BC. That's King Tut's grandfather. So he's all the way, King Tut is all the way up into the 18th dynasty. Well, his bloodline kind of becomes recognizable, I should say, around then, because some famous things happen with Amenhotep III and Queen Taye, and then leading into eventually, obviously, what happened with him and his demise. But all these kings here, what you can see on the right-hand side, their ruling periods, they're not that long. Very short periods in kingship, extremely short. Now we're down into the 26th dynasty, 27th. You see what it says right here? Persian. The 27th dynasty is Persian. The 26th dynasty is Scythe. The 25th dynasty is Nubian. So in the 25th dynasty, the black kings returned. Okay? They returned in the 25th dynasty. Look at this, the Macedonian period. Alexander the Great, you know about that. And then you even have the Ptolemaic period. When I tell you that there's time periods where civilization in Egypt itself has risen and fallen between cultures and races. It's a fact. It's an absolute fact, all right? An absolute fact. So, yes, there were black kings and queens, but there were also Persian kings and queens. There were Greek kings and queens. There were Nubian kings and queens. There were, I mean, you could just, the mix goes on and on and on. Various kings and queens over different periods of time, meaning different races of people over periods of time. You can see them inside of these museums. The bodies are there. But the point I'm trying to make is they understood initially, before the Great Flood, the Sumerian kings, they understood the secret of longevity of life. They understood the secret of immortality through a couple of means. Like I said before, the elixir of life, which included monoatomic gold and colloidal silver, along with a few other herbs that they would add in there. They also understood how to transfer their consciousness from body to body through these many halls of Amenti that existed around the entire planet. If you come to Egypt with me, I will take you to one of the halls of Amenti. I will take you to one. I will let you touch an actual rejuvenation chamber. You will see them. You will feel them. You will see solid diorite warped by an energy beam. You can't warp diorite without breaking it. It doesn't warp. But you'll see solid diorite warped. You'll see a gigantic rejuvenation chamber that's been warped by some type of exotic energy field. And you can touch it. You'll see things that you never thought would exist on this planet. That's what I do when I take people to Egypt. It's a trip of a lifetime. We do incredible things.